when we connect to spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call source, when we connect to that, then we can take it anywhere we want. So in my buffet of psychicness, I can scan people anywhere in the world. I could find you, Sergey, if you were in a galaxy far, far away. I would be able to find you. And I can do medical scans. Like I'm like a human MRI. And I in my mind's eye, I'll see a hologram of you and I can see organs that need help or something going on. I can see cancer. I can see broken bones. I can see torn ligaments, whatever. And then I watch energetic healings happen. We can communicate with spirits, whether they're attached to a body or not is irrelevant because it's all energy. We can do past life stuff. I can scan your dog. We can talk to your angels, talk to your spirit guides, talk to whomever, because our heads are like big satellite dishes and they receive and they transmit frequencies. Every spirit has a frequency they keep throughout all of their lifetimes. And you just think of somebody, whether you knew them or not, doesn't matter. Whether they're alive or dead doesn't matter, because that connects your spirit's frequency to their frequency. And then it opens up something similar to a two-way radio. And you say something to them and they're going to answer you. And it comes in and it feels like a thought in your head, but how you know it's from them is it's that first thing that comes in fast as you can snap your fingers, or even before, because time doesn't exist in the spirit world. Time is a human creation. And oftentimes the spirit with whom we're communicating will have our question before we've even thought it out all the way, because time doesn't exist there. So they're responding to us sometimes in the middle of a thought, which trips people up when they're learning how to do this. And I always say, no, it's that first thing that comes in your head. And then the key is learning to trust it and act on it.
That's very interesting because for the last, I don't know, couple months or something, I don't know, I had this headache all the time, and maybe the change of weather. Even today I had a headache. And I was going to go, I went to MRI here, but I couldn't do it because of claustrophobia. Not everybody can do it. It's so close and I couldn't do it. So if you don't mind, we can experiment right now on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you scan me?
Yeah, absolutely. Even before I get you on my radar, I get information downloaded into my head. I call that divine downloads. And what I heard was shift in barometric pressure. Are you having like some kind of change in the weather happening? Do you have a
big change in weather?
front?
It's been big, yeah.
Big change in weather. Yeah, that's the first thing I heard is shift in barometric pressure. And then the second thing I heard, Sergey, was do you have a mold exposure thing going on? Certainly when we have rain, the mold spores are way more prevalent, and that can affect headaches as well. So in your home or your office, do you have a situation where when you walk into a room, it smells musty or moldy? I mean, I'll get you on my radar and I'll be able to see that.
There is some way to check for mold in the house?
So how this works is I raise my vibrational level to the level of spirit, because we're all spirits attached to a body having a human experience. And when we're attached to a body, we vibrate more slowly just because of the density of the body. So I raise my vibrational level. It takes me a nanosecond. This is what I teach. And in my mind's eye, I watch a laser beam come from my body here in the Southeast US. I'm in Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's going to hook into you in Eastern Europe. And I watch this laser beam go across oceans, like on a map, or if it's going to Australia, I'll watch the globe turn as it goes, down to Australia and to other places, which is just a frame of reference for me to see where the laser beam goes. Okay, so I'm hooked into you, and then I'm envisioning shooting energy from your feet up through the top of your head. And so I have a hologram of you in my mind's eye. And it's as if I'm looking at an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI. Your sinuses look like they're inflamed. Do you have pain in the front of your head?
I have it more in the back.
Okay, so sinus headaches can be in the back of the head as well, but your sinuses look inflamed to me, and inflammation looks like red fog on body parts. So we just add anti-inflammation energy, which is a royal blue color, and that calms it down. So I'm going in there. All right. So I'm looking at this is all barometric pressure related. And so when you've got weather moving in, there's not, if your sinuses are inflamed to begin with, then we can do a deep dive on that, find out what's going on. When there's a shift in barometric pressure, there's not a lot of room for the sinuses that are already inflamed to expand, right? So that's when the headache starts. I'm checking your brain now just to be sure you don't have any scar tissue in there. Brain matter, my analogies, Sergey, are hilarious at times. And that is honest to God how they come into my head because spirit communicates in symbols and signs and pictures and words and phrases and sentences and things like that. And when I'm scanning somebody energetically, I'm a visual learner, I'll see pictures in my mind's eye. And sometimes they're really funny, but they're intended for me to describe them to you so you can envision them. When you envision them, it helps integrate the healing into your body because the body's always going to follow what the brain tells it, even if the brain doesn't believe it to be true. The movies that you make, I mean, how many movies have you been in where there's something scary happening or something that's sad? And the person watching your movie, this is what you're going for when you're making movies. The person watching the movie is their brain knows this is pretend, it's a movie, but they see themselves crying. They find that maybe it's a scary scene and their heart is racing and it feels like it's going to jump out of their chest. Well, their body's following what their brain is showing it, even though the brain doesn't believe it to be true. So that's how this works too. So here come some of my fun analogies. Brain matter, Sergey, looks like thick cooked oatmeal to me. And scar tissue in the brain looks like the chicken cartilage inside a chicken breast with the bone in. So I'm scanning your brain to see what's going on. Have you been in any car accidents or have you fallen? Are you a skier? Did you play sports? Talk to me about that. Even if you didn't hit your head.
Well, I had a bad childhood. My parents were beating me when I was a kid. I would call it abuse, child abuse, but I don't want anybody to think that it was a sexual. It was nothing. Thanks God. It was just kind of like a physical punishment for some reason by my parents. So that was pretty painful. I made a movie about that.
So you've got scar tissue in your brain. That's why I'm asking those questions because we don't have to hit our head in order to have brain injury. And brain injury then heals, and I see scar tissue in the brain. You've got some in the back of your head. You've also got some on the left side of your head. And if you think about it, the brain is not attached inside the skull, it's attached to the spinal cord, right? But when we have an impact, when we're hit, when a baby's thrown in the air, their little brain's knocking up against that bony inside of the skull. That's why you don't ever want to do that. And when the brain hits the skull, it can cause injury. And then what happens? It hits the skull and then it kicks back. So we'll see scar tissue maybe on the left side of your head. I expected to see on the right side too. So back to the fact that brain matter looks to me like thick cooked oatmeal, has the consistency of soft butter. So I'm scooping out that scar tissue. Imagine you take a spoonful of oatmeal and it leaves a divot in the oatmeal in the bowl. And then here comes, this is when the healing part's coming in. Stem cell energy looks like a light amber colored gel, has sparkles in it because it's woo woo. You got to have sparkles. And it reminds me of this hair gel when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s called Dippity Doo, which is hilarious. You can look it up. And so that fills the divot, Sergey. And then there's a vortex that spins above it. That centrifugal force from the vortex is what transforms the stem cell energy into whatever body part we need. And this stuff is so cool. I have watched it regenerate whole organs before that show up on subsequent scans at the doctor's office. And sometimes the doctors will call me and say, "What are you doing? And how does this stuff work?" So I'm going around the back of your brain. I've scooped that out. It's on the left side coming around to the front. You got a little bit on the top of your head, like right about here, not the very top, but above your forehead. You've got some on the left side. It's the biggest part of it is on the left side of your head. And that may make sense to you later when you have a minute to think about it. Maybe you were, I don't know, maybe something happened. You were in a car accident or you know,
I was in a car accident,
being,
yeah, but that was a long time ago. I was 25 years old. I was in a car
doesn't
accident.
matter. Doesn't matter. When I'm scanning somebody that has dementia or Alzheimer's, their brain is full of scar tissue a lot of the time. Full, 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 full. And so we'll remove as much as we can, but a lot of the time, it's they're so advanced in their dementia that their body is not integrating the healing. The reason why we want to get the scar tissue out of your brain is because it's been my experience in doing this thousands and thousands of times that it can occlude neural pathways in the brain. And neural pathways, to me, back to my fun analogies, neural pathways look like laser beams in a museum or a building or a home. For instance, in a museum, we've all seen the movies like Ocean's 11, when they're trying to get through the laser beams to get a piece of art, or they want to steal something and they'll step over the laser beam or step under it. That's what it reminds me of. And that scar tissue in the brain surrogate can occlude that. So when we replace the brain matter, then those neural pathways can go through. And you're lit up. You're lit up like a Christmas tree now. Your brain is. So we probably raised your IQ by a few points. Watch
Oh
out,
my.
world.
So now all these problems that you see, Judy, how can I heal them? Can I heal myself?
Yeah. Yeah. When there's brain injury, so let's just take that as an example. The work that I do happens on the energetic level, Sergey, and then it integrates into the body. That can happen instantly. It can take days, weeks, months. It may need some kind of complementary care like change in diet, physical therapy, surgery, even. It's always, though, bottom line, it's always our spirit's prerogative, our spirit's choice of how to implement a healing, because nobody heals anybody else. You think about when you have a bad cut and you go to the hospital to get sutures, get stitches in it. Well, the doctor will sew up the wound, but the doctor doesn't make your skin grow back. You make your own skin grow back. That's how this works. So the healings happened on the energetic level. That's part of the healing equation. And then most of the time, there's something that needs to be done on the physical side of the equation, the healing equation as well. So when I see brain healings, which is what you just had, I always recommend that you increase your good omega 3s, your fish oil, your highly refined coconut oil. You want to use ones that are purified. And if it's fish oil, find some that say burpless on them, because you don't want to walk around tasting fish in your mouth all day long. So you want to get the purified because you want to get the mercury removed, and you want to get the burpless. And that's one of the protocols for healing concussions, whether they've just happened or whether they're old concussions, like in your case. It helps the brain heal when the brain has a bunch of omega 3s to help it eat salmon, sardines, other things that are high in omega 3s. That'll help a lot.
Okay, so you
So,
healed.
was I yeah, yeah. So was I channeling? I was communicating with spirit, but obviously I was very coherent. There are some people that channel that kind of lose their own consciousness and they allow spirit to kind of talk through them. How I see it is I have a collaboration with spirit. We're collaborating, and we're collaborating with your spirit. So remember, I'm connected to spirit. My spirit's connected to your spirit. So we've got a straight line through me and with me to help you heal yourself. And that's the work that I do on the healing side.
Beautiful. So you've been communicating with my spirit. What is my spirit like? How can you describe it a little bit?
Brilliant, luminous, massive. Your energy field goes out very far. Uh, Creative, intuitive, ingenuitive, easy for me to say. Uh, Interested in new experiences. You look at the world with a fresh set of eyes when you get to experience something new. You are not usually biased by somebody else's way of thinking. I would say you're an original, as we all are, but you are very much comfortable in your originalness. Is that a word? Did I just make it up?
Yeah,
Yeah, you're comfortable in your own skin. That's
yeah, I
great.
am. I think it's about time. I'm old enough to be comfortable with myself. Now, coming back to the scanning. So this is my assumption. You healed me right now with your spirit and my spirit combined. You guys healed me 50%, and the other 50%, I'm going to heal myself through the
Nope,
diet and
nope,
exercises. No? Okay.
nope, nope. You always heal yourself.
Okay.
I'm helping you facilitate healing yourself. Nobody heals anybody else, ever, ever. No doctor. I have people come to me all the time, Sergey, as private clients who have been to 10 doctors and they've gotten 10 diagnoses and 10 treatment plans, and they still have the same symptoms. And they come to me and they go, help, what's going on here? And so nobody heals anybody else, no doctor, no any kind of medical provider, no healer. It's spirit working through me and with me to help you heal yourself.
Awakening the desire and for healing. So,
Yeah.
concluding this session by diet, like you said, omega 3, salmon, sardines, and doing the diet and exercises, meditation, I can completely heal myself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then look into the pressure points. So this information, this was just a divine download. There are these pressure points and they're back in the eye. You can feel it if you put, I have nails. So if you put your finger like back in right there between your nose and your eye socket,
Mm-hmm,
you'll feel it. Now go back in farther, go back in
mm-hmm,
like into
mm-hmm,
your eye socket. There's a little ball back there and it
mm-hmm,
hurts like crazy when you press on it. If you
mm-hmm,
press on those on both sides, it's going to hurt for about
mm-hmm,
a few seconds, but it relieves the pressure in your
mm-hmm.
head. It works great. So what I use is I use my knuckles because I have nails.
Oh,
So
it
if
hurts,
I
yeah.
have a headache, did you feel it?
Yeah, it hurts,
Yeah,
yeah.
it works great. It works great. And you'll think, oh, this is awful. Why am I doing this? But then what you'll find is if you keep the pressure on there for like a, you know, 30 seconds or a minute, it's going to really help your headache. And then there are other pressure points as well. But I learned that one, I think, in my early 20s. And when I used to have sinus headaches, I don't anymore. But when I used to, I'd do that and I'd think, oh, sweet, whatever, this is killing me. And then it would help relieve the pressure. A lot of it too, Sergey, has to do with diet. And,
Yeah,
that's a rabbit hole.
yeah.
But do your best to stay low on the food chain because sugar and refined foods are the most highly inflammatory.
I know. I just gotta. The good thing about living in the middle of nowhere where I am, we don't have any American food here. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
forced to eat healthy. I have no choice. But
Yeah.
I bought some stuff on Amazon in America, and I got a box of chocolate and the good stuff, and I've been eating the different candy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I have to finish that box. I'm not going to throw it away, and then I'm going to go back on my diet again. I
That's a
know,
limiting belief.
I
And your
know
body's
that.
going, "Hey, what are you doing to us? We're gonna give you some headache pain because it's gonna get your attention to throw that stuff out." So what do you go
Oh,
forage for mushrooms in the woods?
You know, I don't go in the woods. I have a big garden. I just planted a lot of stuff and little trees and tomatoes and you name it,
Fabulous.
cucumbers and peppers. I actually right now the cherries. I have a cherry tree and they start to ripen right now. They're like
Mm,
half still green, yellow, red, and I eat them like that because it reminds me of my childhood. When I was a kid,
mm,
we couldn't wait for the
mm.
cherries to ripen. We just started eating them, green still. And it reminds me of my when I was a kid. So I eat them like that.
Yeah,
Right now is the season for organic food here. It's going to start right now in June. You see, in America, you can get all this food easily year round in the store, but it's not the same food. You know that. Even the organic one, it's not the same. Here, when you take it, when you grow your own tomatoes, it smells like a tomato. When you
right,
have a grape, it smells completely different. Some people in America and the West, they don't even know how
right,
a real tomato smells like or a real piece of
right.
fruit.
I have a fun story about tomatoes. May I share it? I was talking with a client yesterday, she and her twin sister, and we were talking to their dad's spirit in heaven. And oftentimes, spirits will show us signs or symbols of things just to let them know that it's really them with whom we're chatting. And so I had these twin sisters on the phone, and I'm talking to their dad in heaven, and he showed me these huge tomato plants with these huge red ripe beefsteak tomatoes. And when I get symbols and signs like that, Sergey, I think, well, that's random. Why in the heck is he showing me tomato plants? And after doing this for so long, I just trust it and I don't edit anything I get. So I said to the ladies, I said, your dad's showing me these big tomato plants with these big beefsteak tomatoes on them. Does that mean anything to you? They both squealed in unison and they said, my dad was known for his beefsteak tomatoes. And he had so many of them that he used to give them to family and friends in the neighborhood. So I said, all right, that's him giving us a sign that I can convey to you that doesn't make sense to me, but it makes sense to you. So it lets you know that he's the spirit with whom we're communicating, which is really fun. I mean, I have thousands of stories like that.
Yeah, I heard the stories. They they send some kind of sign. Let's say, for example, a person loved butterflies, and there's a butterfly right away, or
Right.
some kind of a feather is flying, things like that.
Yeah.
But well, going back to the channeling, my mother passed away in 2020, November 29, 2020. She was 88 years old, and she was in a very bright mind. She wrote 5 books in her 80s.
Wow.
She got a cancer, pancreatic cancer. She was gone within 3 months. Now, can you channel my mother?
Sure. What's her first name?
Veronica, but she went by Vera.
Veronica.
Veronica,
Vera.
Vera Ivanovna, but
Vera.
you can.
Okay. So when you were talking about how she died, what I heard in my head, so as soon as you think of her, Sergey, that connects your satellite dish head with her frequency. So she's here. She's right on your right. They always come in right away. And if you're doing something random, like you're working in your garden or something, and all of a sudden you think of your mom, that's her letting you know she's there with you. That's how it works. But what I heard with the pancreatic cancer was she wanted to go quickly and she wanted you to get used to you and whoever else to get used to the idea of her not being around. So she didn't go instantly, but she went quickly so that you had a little bit of ramp up time to get used to her not being there physically. She's still there spiritually, but not physically. So I find that they're chatty. They're always going to give us a correct answer. They have access to universal intelligence, anything we want to know. And so all we have to do is just say something to them, and back to that opens that two-way communication channel, and then she's going to answer us. So do you have something you want to say to her or a question for her?
Well, let me just share something first. You said the garden. Every time I work in my garden, I never had a house before. I've been like a city person, traveling, always living in my suitcases. And here I am, but she always was worried about me because my sister, I have a sister, she has a house, she's settled down. And I was always traveling. She was like, okay, I hope you're gonna settle down. She wanted to make sure that I have my garden and I am provided for. This is the mentality here. The land
Yeah, sure.
is gonna feed you.
Right.
And now, anytime I work in my garden doing something, I think about her. Say she would be proud of me right now. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So when you think of her, that is because she's with you. That's why that thought is coming into your head. What she's telling me about you is that you've always had such an amazing imagination. And she was worried about you when you were little that your imagination would get you into trouble and that your imagination, that you wouldn't be able to really focus on a way to provide for yourself and your family. Now in heaven, she sees that your imagination is what makes you so extraordinary and so special because your imagination has led you to have life experiences far beyond anything that she could have imagined for you. And she's glad that you didn't let her ideas about your imagination hold you back. But she's saying that she was always worried about your safety and your well being and that your imagination, she's saying, even as a little child, even as a toddler, you were so curious and so imaginative. And she said that you used to, and maybe the family has stories about you doing things like this. She's saying that you would get into things and create things out of nothing. And at times they were worried about your safety because they were like, oh God, keep that away from Sergey because we don't want him, you know, doing something with it that could hurt him. But she's saying that it's really been fun to watch you as an adult. She's saying that when she was still alive, she had to get out of her own way of back to the fear conversation. And who knows what she went through as a child. I mean, we can have compassion for them because we don't know why people act the way they do. Where I go with that, Sergey, and certainly you may have some stories in your family history where, yeah, there were tough times. And so, what did they persevere? What did they go through to give you and your sister a better life? And she's saying that it's been really fun for her to evolve as a spirit from being afraid, and then for you when you were little and wanting to control things so that you stayed safe and that you were productive, and then to watch you evolve when she was still alive. And now she says, now that she's in heaven, everything comes together and it makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
it does, Julia. And this is how I look at it, because she was not the best mother when I was a kid. Let's put it mildly. But when I grew up, I understood that she was unhappy somewhere within herself. She was unhappy, so this spilled on the children, on me and my sister. She had she had a hard life when she was a kid, 14 years old. I was back in the 40s, 1947 or something like that. She was born in 1932, so she was 15, 47. The Stalin regime of Soviet Union, they moved a lot of people from Moldova, where I am right now. They moved them to Siberia. They
Right.
just come, the government just come into the house. They say, you have 2 hours to get ready, maybe 1 hour. And my grandmother was just putting stuff in a pillowcases. So, okay, get something for the kids. I'm going to get emotional now.
Mhm.
And they got 3 little kids, and my mother was the oldest one. And they get into the train like for cattle train, and they take
Mhm.
him all the way to Siberia. So they had to start life over there from the beginning, in the middle of nowhere, you know.
Mhm.
and she was going to college to become a teacher, and here she becomes how do you say that in English? The cow, and you have to milk the cow.
Milkmaid.
Milkmaid. She became
Milkmaid.
because she
Yeah.
reminded me about that many times. Say, I had to become a milkmaid so I can feed you, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I was about 3 years old, 2 years old, they changed the rule, and the families were allowed to come back to Moldova to their homes. So this is how I was born in Russia. I was born over there because they were sent over there to Russia. So she had a
Mhm.
very difficult. She was alone. She got divorced because my biological father didn't want to come to Moldova. He couldn't leave his parents over there. It was a complicated thing, and she was alone with two kids, and so she was depressed, and she didn't have the understanding probably to be happy. I don't know. It was difficult for her with two small children. So that resulted in some kind of child abuse. I mean, because she was angry at our father or something.
Mhm.
But when she became like before she passed away, like few years before she passed away, we became very close. First time in my life I felt that I have a mother.
Mhm.
So
There's a really important point here, I think, that warrants some mentioning, Sergey, and that is it's been my experience that we all choose our spirit before we incarnate. We choose where we're born, when we're born, to whom we're born, and the circumstances into which we're born. So our lives can have a trajectory that will allow us to explore and experience things that our spirit wants to explore and experience in this lifetime. And I'll hear from people, they'll say, why in the heck would I choose to be born into this situation? And I say, but look at what it motivated you to create because you knew what you didn't want. You knew you didn't want to continue to live the life that you had growing up, and you wanted to create a different life. Furthermore, back to the imagination that your mother was just telling us about a couple minutes ago, it gave you the opportunity to use your imagination as a young child, and that helped you survive the abuse. And then it was almost like it was your training ground for your imagination to really let it soar once you grew up and got out on your own and you knew you could create anything you wanted. It would be interesting to do a past life scan with you and see what your past lives were and how and if, my guess is probably many, many lives, your imagination and your creativity was stifled or prevented from being able to manifest. And in this lifetime, you had that. But as a young child, you were using that imagination to help you survive and navigate childhood. Does that make sense to you?
Julie, here you are like 100% on the money because
Yeah.
my life has been all imagination.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I started reading books. I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I
Mhm.
remember I was like little kid, and I was coming from the library because we had no books. We couldn't buy books. It was expensive. I went to the library, and I was coming back with a stack of books. I was reading a lot of books. I think I read thousands of books. Mostly were fairy
Mhm.
tales, children books. But then I
Yeah.
graduated to more stories and American literature, and so I read a lot. I mean, I was living like right now. People are living with their cell phones. I was living with the book. So that was imagination. Then I became a filmmaker, and that's all imagination, how we create our lives. So you're right here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But let me ask you a question. How you said that when we think about somebody, even if they are still alive here, do we connect with them immediately?
Yep. Instantly.
Do they feel that we connected with them or no?
Sometimes, and there's a real phenomenon that happens when we connect with somebody And I see it every day in the work that I do, especially because I do a lot of medical stuff, because that's what people ask me to do. But in an hour consult with me, we can talk to your dead grandma. I can scan your body. We can look at your cat. I mean, whatever. Doesn't matter. We do past life stuff. Whatever we can cram in an hour, we cram into an hour. And it's so much fun, always. But there's when you heard me say, here comes my laser beam from Sweet Home, Alabama, from Birmingham, and it's hooking into you in Europe, I actually see a laser come from my body and it hooks into your body in the solar plexus area. That's called a bioplasmic streamer. It's a real thing that can be measured in a physics lab. If I was at a university in a physics lab, the physicist could measure that laser beam that I'm describing that's connecting you to me. And that's what happens when we think of somebody. And everybody does this. We're just not aware of it, most of us, because we've all had the experience of you think of somebody and you get a text from them or an
Yeah.
email or a phone call, or you run into them and you say, oh my gosh, I was just thinking of you this morning and here you are. No coincidences in life ever, ever. We're all connected. We're all like a big spider web. I have something that just happened. And it involves the movie business. May I share it?
Sure.
That really will illustrate
Sure.
this. The other night, my husband and I were watching a movie, and it had Anne Hathaway in it, and I believe it's called "The Idea of You." I believe it was out a few years ago, and we're watching it, and it's about a boy band back in, I don't know, 80s or something. And the music was really good in it. And so I asked my husband, I said, leave it on. I like to watch the credits. I'm going to give you
Yeah.
credit for what you're doing. And I like to see where things are filmed and all of that. So I'm watching the credits and listening to the music. And I see a name of the stunt coordinator on the screen. And I squealed and I said, oh my gosh, there's her name's Leah. I said, there's Leah. Leah's a graduate of my class and she's a stunt woman in the movie business. I didn't know she was in that movie. I didn't know anything about it. So I texted her. I said, I just saw your name on this screen. Next morning, this is like 10 o'clock at night. Next morning, I had a phone call with a client. Comes to find out she's married to a man who was in a boy band who's now an attorney. And I said, well, how interesting. We just watched a movie last night about a boy band. And I told her the name of the movie. And she said, well, my husband's really good friends with the author of the book. That is what led to that movie. Now, Sergey, that's some serious connections there in less than 12 hours with people here in America, on the East Coast, on the West Coast, people that don't know each other, and we're all connected. I thought that was really remarkable. And that's how it works. When we get signs like that, some people call them spirit winks or spirit nods. It's just letting us know that we're all connected. Everybody that you see, everybody in your life is a soulmate.
Yeah, that's hard to believe sometimes when you look at what's going on in the world.
Yeah. But everybody plays a role that helps the collective. Everybody. Everybody has their role to play. Everybody comes in with things that they want to explore and experience. And it's benefiting all of us in some way, even if we can't recognize it at the moment.
So somebody's doing something and we see it in the news, and that information it was needed for our soul so we can evolve at that moment.
Right. Even if it's even if it's the opportunity to explore the limiting belief based in an irrational fear, and we say, okay, this is happening in wherever, but you're on the other side of the country, or you're in a different country, or on the other side of the world, and it makes you feel badly. So you go to, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? No, it's not. So it's an irrational fear based in a limiting belief that if I see this situation happening, not to negate the severity of the situation or that somebody's suffering, but it doesn't mean that it's going to affect me personally. And I don't need to live in fear because of something that's happening on the other side of the world. When we do that, we can keep our clarity about us. And then if we choose to do something to help that situation, like donate, to some kind of philanthropic organization that can help those people or do something, we're thinking about it clearly. We're not making decisions based in a fear position.
Well, Julia, I don't want to make this too long, but it's so fascinating talking to you. I love it. And if you don't mind, we're going to do another podcast about incarnation.
I would love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even if this podcast gets only 50 views, I don't care. We're going to do another one. I mean, this is for my soul. Now, I have
Well,
to
I love talking to you as well.
thank
You're just as charming and as brilliant as I knew you would be.
thank you very much, Julia. I can return the compliment to you. Now, let me ask you, Julia, about where can people find more about you, about your work, what you do, if you have a website, if you have a book or something, if you'd like to share.
Sure. Everything's at askjulieryan.com. I'm on all the socials at Ask Julie Ryan. My YouTube channel is Ask Julie Ryan. I do a call in show every Thursday night where people call in from all over the world and ask Julie Ryan, and we can talk about anything you want. And it's really fun, Sergey, because I never know who's going to call and I never know what their question is going to be or what spirit's going to say. I have several books, and I'd love to give your audience a free one. So, Angelic Attendants, what really happens as we transition from this life into the next. If you want a free copy, we'll send you a free digital and audiobook download. Just go to julieryangift.com, julieryangift.com, or you can find it on the homepage of askjulieryan.com, and we'll send it to you.
Oh, that's amazing and very generous of you. If you can send me the information, I'll include that in my description as well.
I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
one more question, and we're going to conclude the podcast for today. What's your definition of freedom?
Oh, wow. What's my definition of freedom? The knowledge that we create our thoughts and we're in control of our lives with our thoughts. Because not only do our thoughts create our reality, but nobody can control us at the end of the day because nobody can control what we think. Back to what we were talking about earlier with you as a child, how your imagination helped you navigate a difficult childhood. Well, nobody could control what you thought. They could control what you wore, what you ate, things like that. And I think that gives us so much freedom when we know, okay, our thoughts can create our existence. The other really important thing I think for freedom is when we know what happens when we die, that everybody goes to heaven, we're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones. It helps us live our lives in a sense of freedom because it helps us take chances and do things that are exciting. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? We're escorted to heaven by angels and we're in pure bliss. Okay, bring on whatever is how I look at it. So those are my two. So I gave you two answers. But I think knowing that nobody can control our thoughts, which is really the most basic freedom that we all have. We don't need to earn it. We're born with it. And then knowing that everybody goes to heaven and we're all surrounded by our loved ones and angels, and it's amazing.
Okay, you say everybody goes to heaven, but I have a guest. I had a guest on my podcast, and he had hell experience. And it
Mm.
was unbelievable. It was so graphic. I mean, and he has a lot of views, 107,000 views at this point. Very popular
Yeah.
video. So, how do you explain that? Why did he experience hell?
Because he had a near death experience, which is different from the death experience. The death experience, you don't come back. The near death experience is more like a hallucinogenic experience in a different reality a lot of the time, Sergey. This is my understanding of it. It's kind of like an ayahuasca experience or an LSD experience or something where we're shown people who haven't near death experiences. I haven't had one, but people who are shown different realities and all of that. Keep in mind, we're always going to interpret things through our frame of reference. So somebody who is very much invested in there's a heaven and there's a hell, and hell is all fire and you're going to suffer forever and all that stuff, they're going to experience things through that lens. It's been my experience in talking with bazillions of spirits throughout the time I've been doing this work, is that everybody goes to heaven. It's all pure bliss. You're with spirits of deceased loved ones and pets, all of that. Furthermore, when people are dying, there are deceased loved ones, spirits and angels and the spirits of deceased pets that surround them. And there's university-based research that shows that 90% of people see these spirits as they're approaching the end of their lives, either in visions or dreams. And it used to be that we would think that, okay, grandma's hallucinating. She's seeing her dead mother who's been gone for 50 years. Grandma's not hallucinating. Grandma can actually see those spirits. And the difference between hallucinations of, oh, I'm going to hell and there are evil spirits around me and stuff, those are upsetting. When the research shows that people are seeing deceased loved ones and the spirits of deceased pets and the angels and others, it's comforting. So pay attention back to the whole fear conversation that we had earlier, right? If you see a vision of hell, is that going to kill you in the next 2 minutes? Yes or no? That's going to tell you that is an irrational fear based on a limiting belief that you were taught, and use your GPS system, your internal GPS system with emotion. Now, if you're in fear because your house is on fire, okay, that's a rational fear. Get out of the house before you are injured or killed.
You have 2 minutes to
That's
get
the
out.
difference. Or sooner, right? Jump out of the window, right? Exactly. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Near-death experiences, and there's not very many people saying this, except I'm the only one that I know that's saying it. A near-death experience is a hallucinogenic experience. Did their heart stop for a period of time? Absolutely. But they came back, right? So when and this maybe we can cover in another show, that I call it 12 phases of transition. When somebody's transitioning, they transition and they stay in heaven, right? But NDEs are very valuable because most NDEs, I don't know what the percentage is, but most NDEs are a positive experience, and it gives them the opportunity to not be fearful about death. When we're not fearful about death, it helps us live a more purposeful life of joy.